Mike Papantonio, America's lawyer, is on the line with us. The attorney with Levin Papantonio, Ring of Fire Radio, the host of Ring of Fire Radio, ringofireradio.com, and Ring of Fire TV on Free Speech TV. Hey, Pap, welcome back.
Tom, how are you doing?
Good. I understand that Eric Holder is today announcing that he is going to resign as soon as a fill-in can be found for him. I'm curious your take on this. You've been fairly outspoken about Eric Holder.
My take is hallelujah. That's my take. This is a guy that from the word go has never been able to get rid of his attachment to his corporate defense firm, Covington and Burling. It's been a firm that this is what people missed. And truthfully, you have to understand this started with Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton had kinship with big silk stocking defense firms. I mean, the Rose firm, where his wife worked, was one of the biggest defense firms in the South, in the southern United States at one point. And so he's used to working, he was used to having a kinship with attorneys that came from these silk stocking firms that represented the Exxons and the Mercks.
So this is when you say defense, you're not talking about a criminal defense attorney who's helping out poor people. You're talking about defending big polluters, big corporations, big banks.
Defending big banks, big insurance companies, big corporations. That's really all Eric Holder has ever known. Eric Holder came from a setting where they defended Philip Morris. You recall my discussion about secondhand smoke a couple of weeks ago, where we talked about how they created an industry to make it sound like secondhand smoke was not a problem, and they would go to these biostitute brokers. Well, this law firm was really a biostitute broker. This is a firm that would go out, for example, and find scientists that would say that secondhand smoke won't hurt you. They also worked for Blackwater. They worked for Halliburton. They worked. When I say work, they got paid a lot of money by these corporations. They worked for Bank of America. They worked for the phosphate industry and virtually every major phosphate company in the country at some point. Copper mines, anywhere there was pollution going on, anywhere there was Wall Street doing some kind of hustle, anytime mom and pop pension programs were being stolen from, the law firm that Eric Holder worked for, Covington Burling, was always there. They continue to be there. He's going to go back to work with them. I understand. I understand that he is actually building out a huge penthouse condominium right next to the Covington Burling firm in Washington, D.C. So it's pretty apparent that he was making so much money there before he's going to go back. Look, he was working for Chiquita Banana. They were paying him huge amounts of money. That case was where Chiquita Banana was paying terrorists to protect shipments of their goods. And basically what they were militia thugs who were not beyond killing people, beating people up, doing whatever kind of heavy-handedness they needed to do. The Covington Burling firm was there for them. Worked for the Vioxx folks. Vioxx was a product that killed just thousands of Americans. Worked for the Merck people when they got into trouble. So what we've done with Eric Holder, you see, is we had this notion that he was the person that he talked like. That when he came in, he was all about, I care about the little man. He's never had any kinship with the little man. The only thing that he's made any inroads into, and it's only because he was forced and cajoled, was voting rights issues. He waited to the last minute, if you recall, to jump into that fight. He has not been, in any sense of the word, an attorney general that gives a damn about claimants or the little people. He is completely the silk stocking country club lawyer that Obama appointed because Obama, in a lot of ways, thinks just like Eric Holder on a lot of these issues. That's why Wall Street, that stole $3 trillion from the American public, was never prosecuted. Because Holder was one of the guys that used to represent the Wall Street folks, the Bank of America folks.
Right.
So this is great for America. Of course, I don't expect much difference in the next appointment by this president. He's wholly owned by Wall Street, completely owned by Wall Street. So we're not going to see much difference in the next attorney general.
Some of the names being floated are Donald Verrilli, the believe he's the U.S. attorney, or he's the guy. What's that job that Elena Kagan used to have, where you argue before the Supreme Court on behalf of the administration?
Solicitor General.
Solicitor General. Yeah, I think that's his position. Duval Patrick, the governor of Massachusetts. There've been a few names kicked around. Do you have any favorites or OOs?
I haven't even started looking yet, but it won't make any difference because anything that progressives would want, they're not going to have an attorney general that will go after the Wall Street crooks. They're not going to have an attorney general that will really aggressively go after polluters. They're not going to have an attorney general that separates themselves from silk stocking America. It's simply where we are, even with this president that ran on being somehow, he convinced us at one point that he was actually a populist. So there's not ever going to be, we're not going to see any big change. Ramsey Clark was the last real attorney general that really gave a damn about the working man, about the consumer out there. And we haven't seen that for a long time.
Interesting. Well, we'll keep an eye on this. The bunch of other things going on. One of the things I thought was interesting at the UN yesterday was that when President Obama led the UN, he got basically everybody in the world. I mean, all the countries on the Security Council, which isn't everybody in the world, but it's basically the power core of the UN, to say yes, we are going to criminalize joining ISIS. This is a very different approach from George W. Bush. After 9/11, the Taliban came to Bush, and the Washington Post reported on this and said, we will arrest bin Laden and his merry band and turn them over to a neutral third country for trial, if you would like. And George W. Bush said, no, we'd rather just bomb your country. And so Bush's response was, let's have a couple of wars. That sounds like fun. And it'll, as he told his biographer the year before he was elected, if he was a war president, he was more likely to be able to privatize Social Security. He'd have the political capital. Instead, Obama is saying, let's do this the way it should have been done right after 9/11. Declare these guys criminals and have the whole world hunt them down using their police agencies. This seems to me like a good thing.
It's very creative. It's very good. In defense of this president, these news sites that are coming out and comparing what this president is doing right now to what Bush did is just almost laughable. Listen, this is a president that understood that at least before anything happened, he had to have at least the makings of what looked like a coalition. And actually, it was a very important coalition. I mean, you're talking about the Arab Emirates, you're talking about Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Jordan. He went out and he did what he was supposed to do. And that was to say, we have other people that had sure better pay some money to make this happen. B, when boots get on the ground, which it's going to happen, Tom. I mean, these people saying there will be no boots on the ground is fantasy work. But the point being, this is very different from what we saw with George Bush. He at least is trying to approach this like a statesman, and I'm satisfied to see that. I hope that will continue, although there's no happy ending to this.
Yeah, I fear not. Excellent point. Mike Papantonio, ringoffireradio.com. Thanks, Pap.
Thank you, Tom.
Always great seeing you. We'll be back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.